Troy, let's get to your first darling of the season. We've got a Big Ten team. We've got an ACC team. Take us to Big 12 country with a team that just unveiled maybe my favorite helmet in the entire college football ranks.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. I'm going to go with maybe the surprise team in all of college football last year, the Arizona Wildcats. They surprised everybody, won 10 games a year ago, lost their head coach, Jed Fish, and I think that has people sleeping on what they can accomplish in year one in the Big 12. They replaced him with Brett Brennan, and I remember at the time I wasn't really super hyped about that hire, but it's growing on me a little bit. I think that it can be a really good, successful hire for Arizona. And it could start this year with the talent that they're bringing back. They're bringing back Noah Fafita. They're bringing back his number one weapon in help me out,
Petro
guys.
McMillan.
Yes, thank you, McMillan. Yeah, I should know one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. But
that's right.
It's a tough name.
Yeah, it's. Anyways, not only that, they're bringing back 4 of the 5 offensive line starters from last year in a unit that was really, really improved and kind of spearheaded that offensive resurgence. And guys, the defense really came on down the stretch last year. Held Utah to 18 points, held a couple other teams in the Pac-12 under 20 last year. A really solid squad that a lot of people thought was going to get ripped apart in the portal. They really didn't lose a ton of guys in the portal. They lost some, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but a lot of their team, especially on the offensive side, is still together. And I think that can be enough to rip off a lot of wins on this Big 12 schedule. Big 12 schedule makers did them quite a few favors as well, especially on the back half of their schedule, because they play at Kansas State and Utah, sandwiched around a bye. That's a tough 2-game stretch, no doubt about it. After September, though, you turn the calendar to October. They've got a home game against Texas Tech, a road trip to BYU, Colorado and West Virginia at home, at UCF, Houston at home, at TCU, Arizona State at home. I think that's where they really start to stack up a bunch of wins, kind of similar to last year's season where they started a little bit slow but found their footing once Fafita took over, and the rest was history on the way to 10 wins and an Alamo Bowl victory. So, win your gimmies, beat New Mexico, beat Northern Arizona, maybe take your lumps in Manhattan and Salt Lake City. I'm not going to predict a win in either of those situations there. But then just see what happens. You just need 5 wins out of the last 8 games, and I think those are all very, very winnable for this Arizona team, especially those home games.
For me, Arizona's interesting because I think the coaching is going to be what I'm most interested to see, right? Because obviously, like, Fish leaving, so you're, new coach, that is what it is. I'm not going to doubt the staff. What I'm going to question is what happens when you start October, right? When you start October, let's go through the simulation for a second. You lose 2 road games to Kansas State and Utah. They could certainly win either one of those games. They're good enough to do it, but let's just project it out and say they're 2-2. Well, if you're 2-2 and your staff isn't ready to kind of, hey, let's, keep the heads up, whatever else, this team, having experienced a lot of success last year, could be a little bit down on themselves, right? And this is a team that, again, they had a year of success. Let's see what they are. There's going to be a lot of people saying, like, is it a fluke? Is it going to be new now that they're in the Big 12? And you really got to make sure you can focus, keep it in the locker room. Right now, I'm not saying that they can't do that. I'm not saying they're going to be, like, mentally weak. But for me, it's going to be, how do you respond? Like, do you go out against Texas Tech, a team you should probably beat at home, and do you kind of, like, mess around and, like, win a game by 3? Or do you go out there and you beat them by 20 and you show, like, no, we're still Arizona. We can still do this. We just played 2 of the better teams in the conference, like, back-to-back, right? Is it more of that? Or, again, like, are you going to kind of fall off? The good news, though, like you were saying, Trey, like, there's a real easy stretch in there. BYU, Colorado, like, that's some time to kind of, stock up the wins. And, hopefully you go, play West Virginia at home. That could be a, easier one at home, certainly better than playing on the road. At UCF doesn't really scare me. So could be a good lineup for the schedule here. Certainly a lot of the offensive talented pieces are still in place. Again, you're just kind of hoping that the scheme and the brains behind the operation, right, from the coaching side, you're hoping that's still fine.
One guy that they got out of the portal, a late ad, was Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who was the leading rusher for New Mexico last year. He committed to Ole Miss and then backed off that commitment just a couple of weeks ago to head out west to Tucson. Yeah, Brett Brennan's not a flashy pick, but he was able to keep, Trey, like you said, most of the core together. They had a top 20 scoring offense. They got Fafita McMillan to stay home, as did most of that offensive line. The defense, a lot of the defense left, 28 players total out in the portal, but they also brought in a lot of talent with that coaching change. So the defense is a little bit of a question mark for me, but the offense being able to pretty much pick up and go, and if not be better this year with Merritt at tailback as well. I like this pick. I think Arizona certainly has the engine to get to 8 or 9 wins, which, the over-under only being at 7.5. That's obviously the highest end of the over-under that we pick in our darlings. But I think 8, 9 wins, and maybe they get an upset at Kansas State. Kansas State will be coming back from New Orleans, where they'll have played Tulane in week 2. So maybe you catch the little apple, either asleep after a win over Tulane, or second guessing themselves if the Green Wave can pull that upset off. So I think there's a lot of potential for Arizona this year, and man, those uniforms are really good too. So easy to root for the Wildcats.
Yeah, and you talk about losing a lot on defense. They did bring back their top 3 tacklers. I think like 5 of their top 6 from last year. So lost a lot of players, but keeping the core, like you said, and that was key to just keep the band together, keep it rolling down the road.
Gracious him! How about